At my pastor's funeral, I slid bank statements across his casket. The church erupted when they saw 37 months of theft. June 17, 2024, 2:47 p.m. Lakeside Memorial Chapel in Seattle. The organ music was fading as I stood there, manila folder heavy in my trembling hands, watching the casket where Pastor Robert Whitmore lay in his dark suit. 200 church members wept around me. My hands shook so badly I could barely grip the folder. I need to go back to where this started. I moved to Seattle in 2019 when Databricks relocated me to lead infrastructure operations. I was alone in a new city, no family here, no anchors. I found Hope Community Church that September after walking past it near Pike Place Market. Pastor Robert Whitmore was 62 then, gray-haired, warm handshake, the kind of man who remembered your name the second time you shook his hand. He became my mentor, my anchor. For the first 2 years, everything was normal, good even. Whitmore invited me to Bible study. I started sitting in the third pew every Sunday. I felt seen at Hope. But by late 2021, something shifted. It started with a request. Whitmore's property taxes on his Ballard house were overdue, $3,200. He was embarrassed, said his retirement accounts were frozen due to some audit issue. He asked if I knew anyone who could help. I told him I could help. I transferred the money that week. Then came the herniated disc. He couldn't work for 6 weeks. His insurance denied the back surgery claim. The hospital bill was $5,847, Harborview Medical Center. When he told me, his voice cracked. I paid it. After that, the requests became a pattern. Every few months, sometimes monthly. His mortgage needed help. His car broke down. Medical copays. Whitmore never directly asked anymore. He'd mention a problem and then look away, knowing I would solve it. So I did. $347 every single month, for 37 months straight. I kept records. I had to, because the money was real. My real savings. My financial advisor, Jennifer Cho at Wells Fargo, called me during one of our routine portfolio reviews in early 2024. She had 9 years at the firm. She was direct. "Marcus, your liquid savings are lower than they should be for your age and income. These monthly transfers to one individual, that's not charity. That's cash flow management you need to explain to me." I didn't explain. Not then. But around the same time, the sermons started getting sharper. Whitmore would stand at the pulpit and talk about people seduced by the Silicon Valley gospel. Money and status and empty stock options. His eyes would find me in the third pew. I was burning with shame and confusion. This was the man whose hospital bills I was paying, whose house I was keeping afloat. When church leadership nominations came around in 2022, I wasn't invited to serve. I overheard Whitmore tell another elder, "Marcus's worldly tech job makes him spiritually compromised. We need people whose hearts aren't divided by capitalism." That same week, he asked for $2,000 more, another property tax reassessment. I paid it. By early 2024, I was exhausted. The weight of it was crushing. I started seeing my therapist, Michael Torres, more regularly. 5 years I'd been working with him. I finally told him what was happening. "You're funding a man who publicly demeans you," Torres said. "That's not charity. That's self-harm." Then, in early June, the news came. Pastor Whitmore suffered a massive stroke while gardening. He died 3 days later at Harborview, 62 years old. The funeral was scheduled for June 17th, and standing in my apartment that morning, holding the manila folder with 37 months of bank statements, I realized I finally had permission to speak. The total was $18,686, $12,839 in regular transfers, $5,847 for the surgery. Every receipt, every wire transfer, every lie wrapped in gratitude that never came.
I arrived at Lakeside Memorial Chapel at 2:30 p.m. I sat in the back row.
I woke at 5 in the morning on June 17. Dark suit, pressed and waiting. I pulled the manila folder from my filing cabinet and held it in the morning light. 37 months of bank statements. Every payment documented, every date, every amount. My hands trembled. By 1 o'clock, I was sitting in the fourth pew at Lakeside Memorial Chapel. 200 people filed in. Church members, city officials, former parishioners. In the front row sat David Whitmore, the pastor's son, 38, in a tailored suit, looking appropriately bereaved. For a moment, I saw them. The keys to the Ballard house in his coat pocket. That paid-off property worth $650,000. The service began. Reverend Howard Chen took the pulpit. An outside clergy member brought in to honor a fellow pastor. His voice was warm and reverent. Pastor Whitmore was a man of unparalleled generosity, he said. He gave and gave and gave, asking nothing in return. He spent his life in quiet service to the vulnerable. His heart knew no limit. Each word felt like a knife. I gripped the folder tighter in my lap. The receiving line formed after the eulogy. I stood. I walked forward. David smiled when he saw me. The practiced smile of a grieving son receiving condolences. "David, I'm so sorry for your loss," I said quietly. "Thank you so much," David replied. "Dad spoke of you often, said you were dedicated to your work." "Your father's dedication to helping others was funded by me, David, for 37 months. $347 every month, plus $5,847 for his back surgery when insurance denied the claim. Total, $18,686. David's face shifted. The smile flickered away. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Your father's hospital bills," I said. "His property taxes. His mortgage on the Ballard house. That paid-off property you just inherited? I paid for most of it." "My father never told me about this," David said. His voice had changed, sharp, defensive now. "No, he wouldn't, because he spent every Sunday sermon calling people like me spiritually bankrupt, while I kept him solvent." David's wife gripped his arm and pulled him away. Their faces hardened. People were staring now, heads turning. Whispers rippled through the chapel like wildfire. I'd just accused a dead man in front of 200 people. But for the first time in 37 months, I'd spoken the truth out loud. The folder no longer felt shameful. It felt like evidence. That evening, I called Jennifer Cho. She answered on the third ring. "Jennifer, I did something today. At the funeral, I told David everything. The monthly payments, the hospital bill, all of it." Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "What did he say?" "He denied it, pretended he didn't know anything. But people heard. Whispers started immediately." "Okay," she said carefully. "We need to prepare for what comes next. You're going to need more than testimony. Documentation that cannot be denied." "I have the folder. 37 months of statements." "That's good," Jennifer said. "But, Marcus, I found something when reviewing the church's financial records. There's money missing from the benevolence fund. About $48,000 over 3 years. Transfers to accounts I cannot match to any church programs. My stomach dropped. What are you saying? I'm saying your pastor wasn't just taking money from you. I think he was stealing from the church's charity fund. Money meant for widows, for families in crisis. I sat with that in the darkness, the folder still in my lap. Realizing the truth I'd started to reveal was only the beginning. This wasn't about Whitmore mocking me anymore. This was about vulnerable people. Families depending on charity that never reached them. All because of a man I'd tried to save.
Over the next 6 days, Jennifer and I pulled together every piece of evidence. We accessed my Wells Fargo statements, 37 consecutive monthly transactions, each one labeled benevolence or pastoral support, $347 every single month. We gathered the original Harborview Medical Center bills, stamped insurance claim denied in red ink, $5,847. We collected property tax receipts, mortgage payment confirmations, email threads where Whitmore would write, "Marcus, could you cover this month's property tax? It's $1,600 this quarter." Then, a week later, "The mortgage is giving me trouble. Could you help?" My therapist, Michael Torres, 5 years working with me, documented our sessions. He compiled clinical notes showing my escalating distress, the power imbalance, the public mockery, the financial manipulation. Torres wrote in his summary, "Client exhibits clear signs of financial abuse and emotional coercion from an authority figure." Then Jennifer accessed the church's accounting database. She cross-referenced benevolence fund disbursements with personal accounts. The pattern was undeniable. Between January 2021 and June 2024, exactly $48,000 had been transferred from the benevolence fund, money meant for widows and sick families. All of it went to an account labeled R. Whitmore Personal. But the church was cementing the false narrative. David posted a Facebook tribute that got 247 likes. "My father's legacy is one of selflessness. He gave everything to Hope Community Church, never seeking recognition, only seeking to serve." The church memorial bulletin described Whitmore as a shepherd who counted no cost too high for his flock. Assistant pastor Linda Matthews, who'd worked alongside him for 8 years, announced the launch of the Robert Whitmore Memorial Fund for Benevolence. They were raising $10,000 in his name to help vulnerable families in need. The irony was suffocating. The church was raising money in the name of a man who'd been stealing from that exact fund. On June 22nd, Jennifer called me. The church's audit started. I talked to Ellen Rodriguez, the lead auditor. 12 years with the church. She's thorough, Marcus. And she's found exactly $48,000 missing from benevolence fund disbursements over 3 years. My knees went weak. Where did it go? Personal accounts associated with your pastor. All the records match what we found. Marcus, you funding his living costs. The benevolence fund funding his comfort. He was systematically stealing from the church while positioning himself as its greatest giver. The next day, Ellen called me directly. She didn't know the full story yet, but she knew enough. "Mr. Chin, your name appears in our preliminary audit findings, not as a perpetrator, as a victim. Would you be willing to speak with me?" I told her everything. The 37 months of payments, the public mockery, the folder. Ellen listened in silence. Then she said, "There's going to be a financial review presented to the board on June 24th. It will include these findings, but the family should know first. David Whitmore and his mother need to understand what they're inheriting, not just a house, the truth about how it was paid for." I made a decision right then. I want to show the church, all of it, on June 24th. "Then bring your documentation," Ellen said. "Bring the folder. The board needs to see it from you, not just spreadsheets, from the man who lived it." Ellen Rodriguez became my unexpected partner. She'd been managing Hope Community Church's finances for 12 years. She'd trusted its pastors. She'd never suspected the systematic theft beneath her surface-level audits. The discovery had shattered that trust. She was furious, and she was willing to validate every single thing I'd documented.
"You didn't cause this," Ellen told me on June 23. "He did, and you have every right to show the church exactly what happened." The next morning, I dressed in the same dark suit. I picked up the manila folder, and I walked into the church's boardroom, ready to prove that Pastor Robert Whitmore wasn't a saint. He was a thief. June 24, 2024, 6 p.m. The church's board meeting room was packed. Not just board members, Assistant Pastor Linda Matthews, the worship director, several elders. Whitmore's family had been invited too. Ellen Rodriguez stood at the front with her audit presentation. She walked through the findings methodically. $48,000 missing from Benevolence Fund. All of it transferred to an account under Robert Whitmore, personal. Then Ellen turned to me. "And we have someone here who can speak to additional details about the pastor's financial practices. Marcus Chen?" I stood. My hands were shaking. I opened the manila folder and pulled out the bank statements. 37 months of them, fanned like a deck of cards. I held them up so everyone could see. The paper itself became the proof. Irrefutable. "For 37 months, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands, "I paid Pastor Whitmore $347 every month, plus $5,847 for his back surgery. I have every statement, every transfer, every receipt." David Whitmore stood up. "This is a lie. My father would never. Your father received the Ballard house paid off because I paid the mortgage," I continued. "He received medical care because I paid his bills. And while he accepted my money, he spent every Sunday condemning people like me from the pulpit." Ellen pulled up a spreadsheet on the projector. Red highlighted transfers. $48,000 moved in quarterly chunks from the Benevolence Fund. David's mother put her hand over her mouth. David sat down. His face went pale. I placed the manila folder on the table in front of the board. Not on a casket. On a table. In a room full of people. In the light. "He should have told you," I whispered. "All of you should have known what he was doing." The room fell silent. The fallout was immediate. Ellen's audit report was released to church membership the following Sunday. Hope Community Church leadership voted to suspend the Robert Whitmore Memorial Fund pending investigation. David and his mother hired a lawyer. They discovered their inheritance was substantially funded by my payments. The church's insurance company launched a fraud investigation. The account Whitmore had used was seized by the church's legal team for recovery purposes. 3 days later, David called me. "We're setting up a repayment arrangement. How much do you want?" I asked for what was owed. $18,686, plus 4% interest. David agreed without negotiation. The payment arrived via bank transfer on June 28th. 2 weeks later, David came to my office at Databricks. He was nervous, dressed in business casual. "I wanted to apologize in person," he said. "For my father, for not knowing, for everything." I didn't know what to say. The apology was real, but it couldn't undo anything. It couldn't unsay those sermons. It couldn't undo the 37 months of silence. "I appreciate that," I said quietly, "but this wasn't your fault." "No, but I benefited from it, and I didn't ask questions." We shook hands. He left. It wasn't closure, but it was something. December 2024, 6 months later. I stood in Pike Place Market on a Sunday morning. The first Sunday in months I hadn't spent in a church. I was meeting Jennifer Cho for coffee. She arrived with news. Hope Community Church had undergone a complete financial restructuring. A new pastor, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, had been hired from Tacoma. The benevolence fund had been restored with a $25,000 injection from the church's operating budget. The first distribution went to 3 families that Whitmore's theft had prevented from receiving help. "The church wants to meet with you," Jennifer said, "to discuss how you move forward together." I sipped my coffee, looking out over Pike Place Market. The smell of fish and flowers and salt water. The sound of the city waking up. Something shifted in my chest. Not quite forgiveness, but a loosening of the knot that had been there for 37 months. "Tell them I'm ready to talk," I said. The manila folder sat on my desk at home now, empty. It had done its job. I'd spent 37 months paying for a man's life, only to discover he was stealing from the people who needed help most. The truth wasn't redemptive. It was messy and complicated and expensive. But it was the truth. And in telling it, I gave the church a chance to actually live up to what they claimed to believe.